Board to order at 6:01. You stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, if you would call the roll, please.
Mr. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Present.
Ms. Gass? Here. Ms. McGowan? Here. Mrs. Bomini? Present. Ms. Gully? And Ms. Seeds?
Present. Do have a quorum. Item C on the agenda, approval for the agenda for tonight. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda, and then I'll entertain a support.
Motion to approve tonight's agenda as stated.
Support.
Have a motion and a support. Any questions or comments? Madam Secretary, if you would call the roll.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Gass?
Yes.
Ms. McGowan?
Yes.
Mrs. Momini? Yes. Ms. Seeds?
Yes.
And Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. At this time, we have public comment under item D. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to address the board?
Hey, good afternoon. Good evening. I noticed that Mr. Lennon, I know you took Mr. Scott's place. You may not know what's going on, but I know quite some time back when he had moved funds from one area to another, Ms. Mumley had questioned and asked him what was going on with their funds, because he was misappropriating at that time. And now we're here at this situation, and I've been asking for transparency for a long time. So I'm requesting that the board dissolve the Benton Harbor area school and go up under the Benton Harbor Community School and have the state take that debt that we're in and resolve it and come up under a new community school, like they did in the Detroit area. Because everything that has been done to put us in this situation has been done strategically, like, with a sharp knife with surgical precision. And I know you don't have a clue as to what's going on, because when you got there, the books had already been destroyed, but it was by design. So we need to have this whole thing dissolved, the Benton Harbor area schools, and open up this school for the Benton Harbor Community School District. Therefore, we will relinquish the debt of the old school and come back so these kids can have an opportunity to get an education. That's what we need to do. So we need to take a look at that. I think we got some people here from the state today that are representing the state. Okay. I just wanted to make that a matter of record, because that's what I'll be pushing for. All right.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public at this time wishes to address the board? Thank you, as always, for your comments. We're going to Central Administration, item number 2, but at this time, I've asked Ms. Robinson if she would introduce some of the guests that are in the room, please.
Good evening, board and community. We do have several guests in the room, so I do want to introduce them. We have Kim Lindsay from Bremen. We have Nancy Mullett from Clark Hill. Tim Gardner is on his way from Troon offices. We have Rob Rollman and Tom Martin, both from CSM in Kalamazoo. So our guests tonight.
Thank you. Okay, we're at item 2, Central Administration Real Estate Recommendations. Thank you.
A few weeks ago, the board brought some recommendations to the district as far as real estate restructuring for the 2018-2019 school year. Our leadership team took a look at those recommendations, and we have provided to you tonight a recommendation based off of the information we were given from you. So what we are recommending is that the DEC holds all of our kindergarten classes except for global dual language within their building. The kindergarten side of DEC has 8 rooms, and currently 2 classrooms are used for kindergarten, and 2 classrooms are used for the after-school symphony program with the Boys and Girls Club. So what we will do, we'll move the remaining 5 kindergarten classrooms at Hull over to DEC and propose to the symphony to practice in the gym and store the instruments on the stage as well. So we'll work with them with the Boys and Girls Club to figure out how we can best serve them. And then at International at Hull, we'll serve 1st through 3rd grade, and global dual language will remain the same. So basically the 2018-2019 plan will be pre-K, and all kindergarten classes will be at DEC, and that was from our option 10 that was presented by the board. 1st through 3rd grade will be at Hull. That's also option 10, K through 8. Global dual language will remain at Hull, and then 4th and 5th grade will be at MOK. ACA, Ben Harbor High School, and Dream would all remain the same. And we put some reasons together for this plan. This plan has very little change and movement and will affect a smaller group of students. Incoming kindergartners will attend DEC. Current 2nd graders will remain at Hull, so that's very little movement. And 5th and 8th graders will transition to the next level as always, as they usually do. Staff changes will affect kindergarten and 3rd grade teachers. This will decrease the number of students at MOK to allow space for alternative programming or office space for central administration during the 2019-2020 school year. So we took into some budget considerations time, an additional payday for staff to pack, boxes, cost of movers, and then we'll have an estimated cost based on the last move. So we'll present that information to you, I think, in March. Then I put some things what has to be done. We have some surveys that are out from our preschool group. There's going to be a survey also going out to our 2nd grade parents as well. Kindergarten furniture needs to be moved from Hull to DC, as well as technology rooms at DC are not set up as classrooms, so we have to get those set up as well. And then our 3rd grade classroom furniture has to be moved to Hull, and then we'll have a walkthrough prior to moving the furniture during the summer. So those were some of the things that we are putting on the table for the board to for the board to consider.
Okay, at this time, there are questions from the board.
My question was going to be about costs. That's very, very important as to how much this is going to cost.
So I would say that option 10, I would have chosen option, I don't have it with me, but I think it's option 11. When you think about MLK, that space was created for a college, and it's not really appropriate for elementary students. Also, if you look at the playground, it looks like you're at Barron County Jail outside in a fence. You don't have any room. So we're talking about kids, right? So kids need room to play and prosper. It's not like it's a high school. High school students don't need that. So you're not giving these students a playground. You guys just moved it from the 3rd grade to put 4th and 5th graders in there. So if you were to look at Boynton School and places like that, you have 8 acres, and the other school I think has, one has 7, I'm sorry, one has 8. So the kids have enough room to exercise and do things students should do. And if you look at schools around you and around the state, they have a playground. MLK, there's no playground. So I'm sure everybody's seen that little box the kids are in. So that's a problem. So I think, and when we talk about costs, we don't worry about costs. We just passed a millage for our students last year, right? So that's money. We don't have to worry about money. We have money to fix up Boynton School, right? We have money to fix up Fairplain West. So that was a sinking fund. I don't mean a millage, I'm sorry, it's a sinking fund. So you have funds to do that. So I don't see why we want to still keep our kids in the same condition and not let our kids be kids when everyone around us, their schools have a playground. And also the kindergartners, if you could have all the students at Union, you could move those high schoolers into MLK. You could put the central administration on that 2nd floor is vacant, or at the high school. So we're talking about space. We have tons of space that we're not utilizing. We spent $1 million at the high school several years ago, and we closed the 3rd floor down. So come on now, we're wasting taxpayers' money, and we have to do the right thing, and we have to put people in those spaces so that it validates the cost of us spending $1 million.
Trustee Melvin.
We may have sinking funds, but sinking funds will not pay for the move. And that is, every time has ended up going, okay, sinking funds will not pay for the move. And every time we've gone over budget on the move, it hasn't been, is it on now? Thanks, Daniel. So hopefully it's work. I think until we know what kind of money we have, that's not sinking fund money, that we've got enough money to do this. And I would also like us to consider the fact that it hasn't been that long when we did the massive shuffle. And teachers, some of these teachers have moved 4 times in like the last 5 years. So I have a concern about that. But I think first, we need to know the cost of the actual move. And then we need to know where we are financially and whether we could really afford to do this year or whether we need to wait.
Trustee Mitchell.
Thank you. I agree with Ms. Momini and I agree with Mr. Taylor. I think that the current, I think the current conditions at MLK really are not conducive to our elementary kids. As he spoke about green space, I think that's very important for that age group to have a playground to play on and not be cooped up in a fenced-in area. I looked at the costs that will be coming up next with the reopening of Boynton or the reopening of Northwest. And once again, the numbers just mirrored the report that we got from GMB. We asked, or our charge to Ms. Gibbs was to find out the costs that it would take to open either one of the buildings that would meet state code, meaning heating, electrical, plumbing, and that sort of thing. But yet we get a report to the tune of $4 and $6 million to open those 2 buildings. It would seem to me that we could build an elementary school for $10 million. So those numbers that I see from this company, once again, I don't take stock in. They're trying to rehab a new school. And I'm sure there's a lot of overkill in that report. So, I think that whether it's this year or next year, we need to start taking a look at the MLK situation and getting our kids into a place that they deserve to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, trustee.
So also, our purpose of really talking about the real estate was because we paused the real estate plan, right? We put it on hold, and we have to reopen that real estate plan, whatever it may be. It could stay the same, right? It could change. So we don't have all day to think about it because maybe the state will not let us go back on the plan next time. But once we freeze it, there may be no going back, right? Because if you put certain things on there for sale or whatever, you can't go back. So I don't think this is a next year issue. I think it's a this year issue. And the reason why we wanted to do it just a little bit faster and get this data is because we wanted to give the taxpayers time enough for us to have a community forum, as well as enough time if we had to do some rework at Boynton or Fair Plain, we had enough time to do it. So everybody should remember this is we paused the real estate plan, and this was a plan now to create our new real estate plan, whatever that may be. So you still have to do that based on the state.
Ms. Robinson.
Trustee Taylor, you just asked.
Okay, all right. Trustee McGowan.
Just 2 things. When we've rushed into moving buildings, teachers, the results have not always been what we wanted. I think we need to slow it down. I think we do need to have a plan in place and not just rush through it. My second concern is the cost. You know, we need to make sure what funds we have, what funds are available. We cannot assume that we have the money. My recommendation, or I feel that, you know, we need to slow down on this.
Presidency.
Trustee Gas?
I'm feeling very confused. I'm hearing, and that was my understanding is, and I'm new, that we have a real estate plan that we put on hold, and how long do you think we can put this on hold? And if we don't make some decisions, how do we decide what buildings we're actually going to sell if we don't sit here and make a decision now about where we're going to put students? And I certainly understand that change is hard. Change is hard on teachers, change is hard on kids, but better facilities, if indeed that is true, also, I think, contributes to a learning environment. And so perhaps it's short-term pain for long-term gain.
Go ahead, Trustee Ninja.
Just to add, you know, and Trustee McGowan is correct, and so is Trustee Momini. The last time we did a move, it was planned very poorly. It wasn't well thought out, and they used moving companies where that wasn't necessary to do. While I was working, we did a massive move, and we used our athletes to move us with 2 supervisors. We bought our own boxes from Kirsch Cartons downtown Benton Harbor. Teachers had plenty of time to pack, mark their boxes, and we used our food service trucks to move. So if it's a well thought out plan, it could be cost effective, you know, to do. But you just can't rely on companies to do the move, because you'll be paying premium prices. Plus, you're giving our students some summer employment. Just a note, just a note.
Thank you. My comments are, I wasn't here during any of the moves, and I don't understand why Boynton was closed. I do know that it's in decent shape. I mean, I know it's not in the best of shape, but my question would be, how much is it going to cost the district to maintain some of these other facilities versus upgrading? You know, to me, MLK is an upgrade. MLK, it might be a building that we want to hold on to for memorabilia, but it is not conducive for kids when it comes to playground. And it has some other issues that I'm concerned about at that ravine and different things. So the other school, I'm not as concerned about as I am reinstituting Boynton School back into the school district. The other one, I'm not even straddling the fence for Boynton. I'm very, very much so in favor of seeing what we could do to get that school back online. We have to look at the populace, the area that's out there. It is an extremely good area. Again, I was not here during the decision making why it was closed, but I just want to see what is the upkeep of some of these facilities. And also on here it said Benton Harbor High School will remain the same. Does that mean that other floor that you all spent all that money into is going to remain vacant? I mean, if it's going to remain the same, because again, I see money being put into buildings and then the buildings are closed, or money being put into computer labs all on a floor, and I went on the floor and it's inactive. So, when we make a decision, we need to make sure that the decision is sustainable and not just make haphazard decisions, because it does impact parents and it does impact where people want to go to school because they don't know when they're moved. But we do need to do something. I mean, being indecisive is just as bad as being doing rush to judgment. I would like to see how much we're spending already on the maintenance of some of the facilities that we're in, and how cost effective would it be to make some of these other moves, and where are the recommendations, the comparisons to the recommendations I believe we brought versus this. Is there a comparison to say that this is the better offer, or did you blend in that offer into this presentation? It was blended. Okay, so it was blended. Okay. So how much is acceptable then is the question. I mean, because we all are having our input, but are we going to come to any kind of resolution tonight, or are we just going to wait for another meeting or a workshop?
We need more information.
I think we're going to get most of that information before this evening, so on where we're at financially.
No, but I'm talking about with the cost of the move and what this other's gonna mean too. The cost of the move's not included in here.
Okay, and I do agree, we need that information, but my point was, how long does everything have to take when it comes to kids and their health, welfare, and safety? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it to any individual, but I'm saying how long does it take? It didn't take long to make a decision to close them. I mean, and to reopen them. Is it gonna be such a tedious job to see what is best for the kids in the district, or is it gonna be 54 more meetings, to make some decisions? Trustee McGowan.
Well, can't we have a deadline?
That's why we're here. Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
we can say.
Mhm.
what the information-
We can set some timelines. I believe that's why this discussion is relevant, is so we do set some timelines.
The other thing, it's not just moving, we also have to realize we'll have to have a principal.
Absolutely.
Teach more teachers, those are other costs.
Well, maybe not more, maybe less. So we don't know if it's more. If you're combining, so it could be a combination of more or less, so it's not necessarily more. So we don't need to say, well, we're gonna need more teachers, more principals. We don't know that. That's one of them unknowns too. If we combine
The expense
some
of
stuff.
running a
The
building.
expense of running a building versus the expense of running what we have now that, with the conditions, some of our facilities. Yes.
So,
Ms. Robinson.
and just kind of a sidebar with Mrs. Gibbs, we're thinking that the March board meeting, that we do need to move on this. If we're gonna make a decision,
So that's illogical. At that meeting, I was called trash as I walked out the meeting because I was standing up for the parents and the students that Boyden and the teachers, because at that time, the past president, they really didn't want to let them speak about closing the school, right? So if you look back at the data and you look at the amount of students we lost for closing Boyden, so we have to be sensible. We're talking about retention. We're talking about attracting students. We're talking about safe and secure environments. And when you go out to an element like Benton Township to Boyden School or to Fair Plain West, you have those peaceful environments of safety and tranquility. And I guarantee you, once you mention it to parents, the parents are going to say, you should open the school back up, because they left our district when we closed it.
And I would like to see those elements in the consideration too, as far as safety is concerned, Trustee Momini.
Okay, and when we get this information, we requested that we get a budget based upon IDEX information on how many students we would have. And that's gonna make a difference in how much money we have for moving, because it's gonna be less than what we've got now. Because it's predicted that we'll lose more students next year, so that needs to be considered in the whole thing.
Any more comments on central administration real estate recommendation? No more comments? Okay, then we can jump down to facilities, costs to reopen Boynton. Yes, Carolyn
Before we
Gibbs.
start, could I just ask one clarifying question? So, you said that we would come back to you all in March, but if it needs to include the updated enrollment figures, we won't have that available, because we've been asked by Treasury to hold on that then.
I'm not talking about this year, we have predictions from IDEX. And I thought wasn't that what we requested, was that we have a budget based upon the predictions of IDEX.
Right.
Because every time we do a budget, we add students and we end up losing students.
I understand that, but we've been asked by Treasury to hold off on doing the FOP with the revised IDEX questions for a couple of months. So I'm just saying we have a difference in deadlines, and so I hear everybody's frustration about the deadline. So Mrs. Robinson and I cannot commit to you all that we'll come back in March with this and have the FOP IDEX numbers. It's a budget that ties out.
That's insanity. We don't know how much, what our budget's gonna be, and yet we're gonna plan on spending money that we don't know if we have it or not. I mean, you're doing what you're being told, but I just, unless I got the facts in front of me.
So,
Trustee Mitchell.
so does that mean that we really can't do any planning until we hear from your end, Ms. Gibbs?
So what Mrs. Robinson and I were committing to is to give you all a plan based on what our current assumptions are with the budget we have today on a recommendation and comparison. And that's what we said we would do. What I heard, I'm not saying it's an unfair question, Mrs. Momini said, well, we really need the IDEX FOP. Right now, our FOP is on hold at the request of Treasury for a small bit of time.
But,
So,
well, for one thing, we do have to have public hearings.
Correct.
So, yeah, you can do some of that stuff, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna vote yes for a move until I get all the information. Because you guys talk about how insane we've been and how we made decisions that weren't right. And I'm tired of it.
Well, I certainly would want to wait until we did have a public hearing and have the input of the community.
Yeah, man, the community may have a totally different idea than what we
You
do.
know, They may, and certainly we want the results of the survey from the staff also. That could be done in the meantime, I think.
Yeah, that you can do. It's not like there's a big expense to it or anything. And it would give us maybe a plan we hadn't thought of.
And you still use your FOP. If they told you to hold up on the IDES, so be it. You've given us some data, right? Based on what you have now. And so give us the data, I guess, for whatever we want after that on the assessments you already have.
one of the key assumptions there, though, is pupil count. So if we don't agree with enrollment, that has a significant impact on the district's budget.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, ma'am, is you guys already gave us a option 10. So if you gave us an option 10, then use that same data for option 11, 12, 9, 8, whatever it may be.
Based off of what we currently have.
Based off
Based
of
off
what
of
we
the
currently
numbers that
have.
you currently have, yeah. And I know trustee
So
Martin
we-
had asked for something
Right,
different,
so-
so I think we're happy.
But I'm hearing, we have two different point of views right now, that's what I'm trying to.
Right, no
resolve.
ma'am, because you're saying the IDEX, if they told you to hold it and put the brakes on, I respect that. But if it's just the standard FOP,
But it's not correct.
well,
So we're asking them to do a plan that's not correct.
It's based on a student count that's not realistic.
okay, so base it on the student count that we have. You know how many students you have from your fall count? Base it on that. That's realistic,
Maybe.
right? I mean,
We might lose 50 honor kids again next year. And then there's goes that money that you're gonna spend.
Any other comments from the board?
Yes.
Yes, trustee Mitchell.
Ms. Robinson, I can't help but remember when we had the kindergarten center on Union. And I know that program was very successful and was probably at capacity in that building. What was the of the options that were offered, what played into your decision to have kindergarten go to McCord rather than back to Fairplain East?
So, because right now, because it's used, half of the building is used for preschool, and so if we fill that, we're trying to fill that up to capacity for our building. That's what we're trying to do.
Were the kindergartners' parents pleased with the location on Fairplain East?
When I was on Union, yes, they were. They were pleased. And so,
So my thought being, of the kindergarten center returning to East and the Dream Academy moving into MLK with a gymnasium, and the current students perhaps moving into a Boynton at MLK. And the Dream Academy needs the space to truly be an alternative high school. Just my thought, just something to look at.
So the option would, so if we go through and adjust some of these options, have Dream move to MLK, MLK go to Boynton, and then our kindergarten go to Fairplain East.
Would it not accommodate those two kindergartners classrooms that we have at McCord currently?
It would. So all kindergarten could be housed at Fairplain East.
I think, Mr. Taylor, you had a conversation with the principal at Dream Academy, and he was.
well, yeah, because I think they're looking for a high school, right? We have them in if you look at the old kindergarten Discovery Center, that was built for a kindergarten through second grade back in the 60s, right? And so they don't even have a gym. They go to the high school to play games, right? They practice at MLK. So we just got to think logical, right? What's best for kids? And I think I heard stuff about teachers. With all due respect, I think students are our number one option because, you can teach anywhere, right? I just got moved to a different department where I may not like it, but it's my job, right? So I think our main goal and objective should be what's in the best interest of students, not grown-ups, because that's why we failed today.
And I think it's important for Mrs. Baptist's department to be a vital part of anything that we do, because teachers need to be notified well in advance. Classrooms need to be identified. I mean, all of that goes to the plan, whatever you're going to do in the movement. So, but that's something that has to happen.
Okay, question, Fairplain West, nobody's talking about Fairplain West, what is going on with Fairplain West, and I think we're in the next item on the agenda. Was there, you did have a plan for Fairplain West, Mr. Taylor?
Well, that plan for Fairplain West and Boynton was to take those students out of MLK, right? And put some of those students in Hull. I think it was the 1st through 3rd for Hull. And then I think you would have your 5th and 6th graders at one of those schools, right? So your kindergarten would be, I think it was at that time, it was at Boynton and not Union. And then I think, because I think, you know, you got what, 400 something students at MLK? Right, so you would have to split those students.
Right, Ms. Robinson, or Ms. Gibbs, if you would go over,
So the board had requested that we obtain estimates of reopening Boynton and Fairplain West. Both of these schools have been closed greater than 3 years, so there is a lot of work that needs to be done to get them up to code, and so that is what's presented here. The estimate for Boynton ranges from $4.5 million to $5 million, and Fairplain West $5.5 to $6 million. There was a question earlier about what our current sinking fund balance is. Our current sinking fund balance is $2.4 million. So the detail, we asked a different firm, we asked CSM Group, they were introduced earlier today to come in here and look at those buildings. They did a thorough walkthrough. And this is the detailed estimate. If you continue to go down, it actually has a line item detail, including all of the renovations that need to be done to get those 2 buildings back up to code so that they can be reopened as a school.
questions from the board?
I think, Madam President, I would concur with Trustee Mitchell that these are very high estimates, because if you look at the past report we had, when a school building is closed, right? Yeah, you have to have the fire marshal and the building codes. But from that objective report that we did receive, it said if Boynton was to reopen, you just need to do some lighting and some mechanical, right? So it's very small amount that was identified by, what was the organization? That time
And we still maintain that report. So
Yes.
for reference, we do have, it is accessible to the board.
I think that was the report, who's this? That was
Is
from
that, GMB?
GMB.
And there's another cost estimate, right? Okay. Right.
How many items on here are absolutely necessary? And how many are, well, you probably should do it, but you could get by without?
I'm actually going to ask Rob to answer that
Okay.
question.
If you would,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
they can see you, please. Thank you.
So the way this is set up, we went through the schools, and basically what we did is we made the assumptions based off the fact that the schools have been closed greater than 3 years. That's one of the primary concerns that the state would have. They would come in and they would look at more than just mechanical. You mentioned electrical, Mr. Taylor. They would look at those items. Some of the things they would look at specifically is going to be life safety, meaning exit signs. They're going to be looking at emergency lighting. They're going to be looking at all of your actual fire. So any of your fire alarm devices, what your fire alarm system looks like, things along those lines. There are other things within the school that would have to be addressed as we were walking through. The boiler itself. So Boynton, for example, you do have one good thing going for it. It does have a hot water system in it, whereas Fairplain West has a steam system. That's a positive though for Boynton, because you need to just install a new boiler. Boiler is outdated. We're assuming it's non-serviceable. So basically what we've assumed is that you would have to go in, install a whole new boiler, but utilize the existing system, service the existing system in place. There's a lot of asbestos within the building itself. A lot of it is still encapsulated. It's not friable, it is fine. But there is a lot that has, since it's been sitting for so long, that it has actually started to break. Not ceiling tiles, but floor tiles are actually popping from the floor. The issue with that is you can no longer go in and just cover it with carpeting like you do in a lot of schools. That is perfectly acceptable if it's still contained. Since it has popped, it's now considered a friable material and it has to actually be removed. Some of the other things that are consideration. So you asked the question, what absolutely has to be done? We're making a lot of assumptions based on the walkthrough that we went through. You referenced the GMB report. We actually went through that. We made assumptions based off of what they came up with. A lot of it is really going to fall on what the actual fire marshal is going to come back and say, as well as what the actual building code officials are going to come back and say. So what I mean by that is the fire marshal may very well come back. They may walk through the building and they may tell us that the system that's currently in place is acceptable and we don't have to replace it. On the other side, they could come back and say, you've got to replace everything. So we're making assumptions based off of that, trying to give you a number that's not going to say, okay, this is going to cost you $1 million. We have those inspections come through and then it's going to turn out to be 6. We don't want to try and tell you that it's going to be less when it may in fact turn out to be more.
So to get a more accurate amount, we need to have the inspections first.
Correct. Now, before you go and try and make the assumption that you should just go ahead and do that, there's one reason why you should think first before you do that and really decide on whether you want to truly open that school. And that reason is that the second you request those inspections, it's now public knowledge. That's out there for everybody. And that kind of opens, for lack of better words, a can of worms for you, in that now it's out there, it's known, and it's available for anybody to know. So the inspections, if you decide you do want to go that route, that is the very first step that you do, is you have the inspections come through. They would actually make sure and kind of dictate which direction you need to go, and then we can actually start honing in. So the numbers that are in front of you, yes, there's going to be sticker shock, but the catch with that is it's like I said, there is a lot of unknowns in the schools that we don't know and truly won't know until the building officials get in and give us more better direction on which way we need to go. There is the possibility this number could come down significantly. There is the possibility it may end up being the max. It's a very difficult question to answer right now, and I know that's not as much information as I know you'd like to have.
You didn't bring your crystal ball tonight then.
I did not, ma'am. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Well, but I think that is better news than was expected out of the report that I read. You know, I think, sir, you know, as far as public knowledge, it's public knowledge right now. So we don't
Yeah.
worry about that. We've got television crews and papers. So everybody knows.
Sure.
Everybody knows we're looking at this. But I think that Ms. Gibbs, I think to make the board to make an educated decision on this, I would like to go ahead with the inspection half of it. I don't think that's cost prohibitive. I also know that some of the issues that you speak about, the fire alarm system, the other items that are needed by the fire marshal, they were addressed in the safety grant. Mm-hmm. So some of those dollars could come out of that as the plan was developed when we first got the grant. Now, I don't know how the grant has been switched around and changed around, but maybe we'll find that out later today. But in all honesty, I think we need to take a look at that.
I wonder if we need to do public hearings first before we spend any money.
Well, Martha, I think that the public hearing is good, but I really can't see any parent not wanting to put their kid in a better environment than what they're in at MLK. That would really surprise me. But, I'm just one member.
I have a question, Madam
Yes,
President.
trustee Taylor.
So some of those items, though, in a school, even if it's closed, it's still grandfathered. You have grandfather clauses based on.
Here's the issue that you're running into.
Yes.
Since the school has been closed greater than 3 years.
Correct.
That's the problem. That's where you lose that grandfathership, and they can come in and they can mandate that it is updated. So
Okay.
for example, I know that you mentioned that the school, I believe Boynton specifically, was updated in the 90s. Is that what I heard you? So the problem is there's still, say for example, the fires or the any of the life safety was updated in the 90s, early 90s. it's outdated. That's the unfortunate side. So if the fire marshal does come in, because it's been closed for more than 3 years, that's gonna be one of the issues. Another one of the hidden issues that you may have, and this is one thing that we've captured within here, is one of the concerns that we had the second we walked within both schools is that there is zero heat within the schools. They have completely been shut off. So for an example, one of the things, and I'm not sure if you've all received this or if you read this document, one of the things we referenced was a previous school that we actually opened up just recently, and this was only within the last year. 2016 we opened it. Comparable school is an elementary, single floor. It was around 30,000 square feet. The biggest difference is that they never shut their heat fully off. They still kept it on somewhat. They still ran into significant plumbing issues that we ran into. So we went through, scoped all the lines that ran into underground cracking with lines, even with the heat still somewhat on. After it was all said and done for that school, it ended up costing about $1 million for them to bring that up. But like I said, the biggest thing that they had was it was a newer school than what Boynton is. I believe Boynton was in the 60s, if I remember off the top of my head. 1962 for Boynton. It's a little bit smaller. Boynton is 23,000 square feet. So the comparables are somewhat close. But it was a lot of cosmetic work that was done within the school, but the largest part was going through and updating those mechanical and things along those lines. The other side of it with it too was it was only closed for about a year. And so because of that, they had the grandfather that you were referencing where they didn't have to go through and actually update all those systems.
And the reason why I mentioned some of that was because if we look at the other report we got,
yep,
that's what they mentioned.
The grandfathering piece.
So they said some of these pieces are grandfathered in. So that's coming from a reputable organization that builds schools in the state of Michigan. So I would have to take that and say that that can be factual because
I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah, I don't think these guys would put their reputation on the line for that. So that's the only reason why I said that.
So one of the things we did do, we tried to do a little bit of additional digging, and we actually reached out to the state fire marshal's office, and we reached out to the Office of Building Codes. We did try to get some additional information very vaguely for the reason of we didn't want them to understand what was going on and know that this was going to potentially be happening. And what they came back with was very mixed. It wasn't definitive in what they were going to require. The biggest thing they're saying is they would basically better determine it as they did the walkthroughs. So that's where we had to try and give it our best assumption based off of the information we had. Sorry.
Any other questions for the gentleman from CSM at this time?
Thank you for your input.
Absolutely. Thank you.
From the board, we are moving forward with the inspections. What you want us to do on our end?
Is that the consensus of the board? This time.
I agree with that.
Yes. It is the consensus of the board that we do that. Okay. Is there any other discussion as far as Boynton and Fairplain West at this time? We're waiting for Trustee Gully. I have not heard from her. And at this time, we are going to go into closed session. And we have attorney-client privilege with Attorney Nancy Mullet. And the reasons for the closed session are on the agenda: results of safety grant audit, SEC report, recommendations for safety grant facilities, discussion of next steps, and external assistance. So at this time, we're going to ask for a motion, go into closed session.
Make a motion to go into closed session with a 5-minute break.
Absolutely. I need a support.
I support.
Okay, we do have a motion and a support. Okay, Madam Secretary, also before we call the roll, who was the support?
I was.
Okay, all right. We are inviting into the closed session. What is the gentleman's name from Reman?
Ken Lindsay.
Kim.
Into, so
The first one is just.
For the first one.
Okay, it will be also, Paul Connors from the Department of Treasury will also be invited via phone into the closed session with, Attorney Mullet. Yes, she did know that before time. So, Madam Secretary, would you call the roll?
Yes, Ms. Gass?
Yes.
Ms. McGowan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mamedy? Yes. Ms. Seats?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
And Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, after the 5-minute recess, we will be in closed session in which room?
In curriculum.
In the curriculum room. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
You all get that set up.
Report.
Madam Secretary, if you would please add Trustee Gully to our attendance, please. Thank you. I would like to entertain a motion to return into open session and then entertain support.
So moved.
Support.
Madam Secretary, if you would call the roll.
Okay, Mrs. Mamini, yes. Ms. Gully?
Yes.
Ms. Seats?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Gatz?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. I would like to entertain a motion now to go into closed session for attorney-client privilege with True Law Firm and for consideration for written contract and also board resolution and the Benton Harbor Area Schools Consent Agreement Amendment. And we also will be inviting the gentleman from Reman to please join us. And we're also inviting State Department of Treasury Paul Connors via phone to be with us in that closed session. I'm entertaining a motion.
Motion to go into closed session for attorney-client privilege.
I need a support. No comments. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Ms. Gully?
Yes.
Ms. Seats?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Gatz?
Yes.
Ms. McGowan?
Yes.
And Ms. Mamini, yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Sir, if you can join us.
Can I open it up? That way we can get out of here.
I am. I'm waiting. I need to get these minutes into sealed documents.
It's a long night.
President
I've been up since
Taylor.
5 o'clock this morning.
I have too.
Me too.
So I'll entertain a motion to go
Okay.
back into open session.
Support.
I have a motion and a support to go back into open meeting. Madam Secretary, if you would call the roll, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gass. Oh, okay, sorry. Ms. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Mamini? Yes. Ms. Gully?
Yes.
Ms. Steve, I was waiting for me to
Yes.
talk.
Okay, we are back in open session. And next item on the agenda is, we did have conversation concerning a Ringman contract, and I would ask that Trustee McGowan, please read the resolution for the Ringman contract, if you would, please.
Okay. Whereas the district desires to retain the services of Reman Robson to provide CFO level services as well as accounting support sufficient to satisfy the duties of the district's business office, and Reman Robson shall serve as a third-party contractor and not as an employee of the district, and employees of Reman Robson are not intended to become employees of the district and will remain employees of Reman Robson as a third-party contractor. And Reman Robson has presented a form of contract attached hereto as Exhibit A for the consideration and approval by this board, and the state of Michigan has agreed to reimburse the district for all expenditures arising out of the contract. Now therefore be it resolved that this board hereby approves in substantial form the contract provided by Reman Robson attached hereto as Exhibit A, and the board president is hereby authorized to execute the contract on behalf of the district. This board hereby acknowledges, relies, and accepts the commitment of the state of Michigan to reimburse the district for all contract-related expenditures. This board hereby acknowledges and affirms that neither Reman Robson nor employees of Reman Robson shall in any way become employees of the district pursuant to the contract or the services being provided by Reman Robson associated with the contract. All resolutions and parts of resolutions insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution be and the same are hereby rescinded.
Okay, thank you. We do have a resolution for Benton Harbor Area Schools for Reman Robinson, and I would entertain a motion to accept this resolution.
Motion.
So move.
Okay, we do have a motion. We do have a support. Trustee Gully? Okay, are you supporting? Yes, we did support. We had two. Okay, any questions or concerns concerning the resolution as read?
What was the name of the company again?
CSN Reman
Yeah, I get, you know how
Robinson.
many times you read it in there?
Okay,
Ooh. Okay, you ready for me?
Madam Chair, if you would call the roll, please.
Okay, Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
Ms. Gass,
Yes.
Ms. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Mamini, yes, Ms. Gully,
Yes.
Ms. Seats,
Yes.
and Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Also, on the last item on our agenda for consideration from the board is the Benton Harbor Area Schools Consent Agreement Amendment number 2018-1. We all are aware of, if you would read consent agreement. On September 23rd, 2014, Benton Harbor Area School District and the State Treasurer entered into a consent agreement under the Local Financial Stability and Choice Act 2012 PA 436 as amendment MCL 141.1541 to 141.1575 Act 3436 to assist the district in implementing the agreement. Schedule 3, 3 state assistance shall be amendment as provided. Treasury shall provide the district with financial compensation for the cost of any additional staff with the approval of the treasurer under section 3 or 8 in an amount not to exceed $500,000. While the district is responsible for initially paying these costs, Treasury shall reimburse the district for these expenses within 45 days of submission of an invoice for reimbursement by the district. Financial compensation under the paragraph is subject to the availability of funds appropriated by the Michigan legislature. This amendment will be effective, and the motion is, I move that this board approve the consent amendment number 2018-1 as proposed by the Michigan Department of Treasury, and that the board president be authorized and directed to execute the same on behalf of the school district. And I'd like to entertain a motion.
Like to make a motion, Madam President, to approve the consent agreement number 2018-1.
Support.
I have a motion and a support. Any questions or any concerns at this time? If none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Gass?
Yes.
Ms. McGowan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mamani? Yes. Ms. Gully?
Yes.
Ms. Seats?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
And Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. And I would ask that corrected on the resolution, my name is not Sheets. And I hope this is a misspelling. And it is S as in Sam, E as in apple, A apple, T Tom, S again is in Sam, Seats, not Sheets. I did notice Mr. Connor kept saying it, and I'm like, you don't want to correct the Department of Treasury, but I do want to correct it on this paperwork, because that is not my last name, and I will not sign it as such. So next item on the agenda, nobody else caught that but me?
I got it.
Yeah. Okay, board president comments, I'm sorry, none at this time. Ms. Robinson, do you have any comments? Comments from the board, starting with Vice President Gullen. No comment. Trustee Mamani?
No comment.
Trustee McGowan?
No comment.
Trustee Gass?
No comment.
Trustee Taylor?
No comments.
Trustee Mitchell?
No comment.
Okay, I will entertain any board announcements, I'm sorry, or reminders. Oh, yes. Ms. Gully would like to the board and to the staff to commemorate a gentleman who has passed, and to condolences to the family at this time. So, and I'm gonna give the mic to Trustee Gully, who known this gentleman all of her life, so.
Yes, we lost a great leader. He was a basketball coach with Benton Harbor area schools, and he also coached football, right, Mr. McKee? Earl McKee, he passed away. He was a teacher as well, a health teacher. So he passed away at the age of 81 just the other day. So we always have the Christmas holiday tournament in honor of his name. So, you know, that always brings out a nice crowd of the community. So he had a lot of community support. His daughter works for the district. She's an interventionist and a psychologist. So we just wanted to show, you know, our condolences and deepest sympathy on behalf of that family. And I believe the services are on Saturday through Robbins Brothers. So we need to send the plaque in dedication of his memory. and also Carmen Flowers on behalf of the Benham Area School District.
Do we put together board resolutions?
We can do it and read it at,
And could
At
we
the service
have
that
a
we want to.
board resolution to the family, and from the district? Yes, to the family.
Yes.
Okay, would you please do that? And our thoughts and prayers are to the family. Any other comments? Anything under other? Thank you, Vice President Gully. Board announcements and reminders. I will entertain a motion for adjournment from Mr. Taylor.
motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll take a second.
Support.
Okay, Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Hey, Ms. Gully,
Yes.
Ms. Nominee, yes, Ms. McGowan. Yes. Ms. Gass,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
and Ms. C.
Yes. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming out.